It's time to step into the Coming Out Lounge, a cool, safe space to be true to your sexual self. With your host, Rick Clemens. Rick has helped hundreds of people come out of the closet, and now each week he's bringing you cool insights for loving and accepting yourself, boosting your self-confidence, and living a guilt-free, purpose-filled life on the other side of the closet doors. Cuddle up with yourself and get ready for heartwarming coming out stories, ideas for living authentically, and tips for being fully self-expressed. Now here's your host, Coming Out Coach Rick.
Hello, Closet Busters. You know what time it is. It's time to step out of the closet and stop that closet dwelling and to step out, step up, and step into living your powerful truth. So today I want to say welcome to the Actor Studio. I'm just kidding. Not really. We're not really at the Actor Studio, but we're going to go look at this life where hiding in the closet is all an act. In fact, I guess the best way to describe it is it's kind of a script that we run through day in, day out, day after day. It's very similar to an actor's life in some way, and sometimes it's similar to actors and how they see themselves. You know, as actors, they rehearse and they rehearse, yet often an actor doesn't really see the performance that they're giving in quite the same way as the director or the other cast members or the audience does. But you know what? What's so interesting is the same thing holds true in all the closets of our lives and all the coming out pieces that we do, whether we're gay, straight, bisexual, doesn't matter. The closet doors that we hide behind when we decide to come out of them, there's a whole different way that others see that. So how you perceive yourself is completely different than how others may see you. So I want to fix some of that. You know, it's National Pride Month, and I really want to work on helping you find ways to step further into being who you really are. And today we're going to explore what it would be like to finally be yourself, your unique self, without separating all these little pieces of yourself that, you know, I do this over here for work, I do this in relationships, I do this with family. It's all part of who you are. And my guest today knows really a whole lot about what it takes to really believe that you are you and you are one whole person and that your part of your life isn't separate from this other part of your life and so on and so forth. In fact, he's just coming out, so to speak, in his own way to his own uniqueness in the world. He's working with artists and small business owners to help them align with who they are and what they love to do. Michael is an actor, a storyteller. He's a filmmaker. He's also a nationally recognized apartment dweller, so we'll have to get to that. As well as an awesome life and business coach who's truly stepped up to the plate to help other creative types own their unique space in the world. Welcome to the show, Michael Schreiber. Hey, Michael, how are you, buddy?
I'm great. Thank you, Rick.
Hey, awesome. I'm so excited to have you here. You know, I'm going to give the listeners just a little bit of a background on the two of us. And no, we haven't slept together. He's straight on gay. So let's get that out of the way right now, folks. Okay. Michael and I met at a pretty cool networking event the last 2 or 3 months called The Art of Active Networking. And we've had some good conversations. And then we just decided to meet for coffee once before we went to the event and decided, you know what, this would be a really cool thing to have Michael come on the show. And the reason I wanted to have him come on, especially during Pride Month, is because of this whole acting thing and because he works with creatives and he's been an actor himself, to really start to help us integrate all the pieces of ourselves, as well as look at how he's doing this with creative types and people in their businesses to really be wholly who they are. So I kind of alluded to this in the intro, Michael. You're kind of coming into your own in this whole life of being who you uniquely are right now in your own life, correct?
Definitely. It's a challenge too. You know, there's a lot of times I think that as an artist, I felt like I needed to take advantage of whatever opportunities came up, but being opportunistic was very different than being strategic and getting to a point where I can say, this is what I'm about. This is what I want to do. This is what's important to me. And this is what I want to do for a living. You know, so to kind of bring all that together and let go of some other opportunities that may have been lucrative or may have been other people's ideas of what could work well for me, it's just challenged me in a whole new way. And I'm just so much happier with my whole life, despite the challenges of stepping into that coming out that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. What I find interesting about what you just shared is so much of what you said in your words is exactly what most people who are hiding in the closet around their sexual orientation are facing as well. There's those pieces of self you hold back, and there's those things that you think, what are others going to think? And all these things kind of pile up. So it's a really good parallel that you've just painted for the audience on how similar this freaking thing is that we call coming out is for everyone in so many areas of life. So you were from New York City, just recently transplanted here to Los Angeles. So I'm curious, how's that? And I know it's not recent, but how's been that whole coming out of going from one like really kind of very metropolis area where you can pretty much get around pretty easily and do the things you want to do to then being dropped here in the middle of LA? How's that transition been?
Well, it's been very gradual. I was a nomad kind of for some time in between. And that, really kind of came out of that lifestyle of, what's available and what jobs are interesting that can allow me to live the lifestyle I wanted to in terms of, there's a period of my life not too long ago where I kind of had to be near where my dad was as he needed some help at the end of his life. Mm-hmm. So some of the job choices I made were for other people, and I just ended up traveling around the country quite a bit. Los Angeles, though, to get to your question more, is really I'm in a neighborhood that I kind of have everything I need nearby. I still don't own a car, so I'm able to kind of have this lifestyle that's ultimately location independent, like I'm working from home. It is a very different energy, but living right near Hollywood and being in New York with the acting communities there, I think that, what I notice more is the similarities, the energy of people who are kind of desperate running around trying to find their way into things. And then, having circles of people that are very successful and living these unique lifestyles. So I see that, in a lot of ways, the cities have very similar things going on too.
I'd love to take the audience into something you just brought up, which I know a lot about, not because I've done it, but you mentioned the word location independent. And I'm surrounded by a lot of people who do that. So for those who have never really heard that terminology, what that means is you kind of travel wherever you want to, and your work and the life that you have is sustained by living basically on the road. And it doesn't mean necessarily always in hotels. You may be doing some hostel stuff. You may be, finding places where you can couch surf on people's couches. So take us a little bit into that decision. That must have been a big life change to go, okay, I'm going to just kind of let go of things and just be where I want to be. How was that?
Well, I'm at the beginning stages of it.
Okay.
In some ways I've done it before with working for companies. I was a spokesperson before, and I would have maybe 75 to 100 days a year. I did this for about 4 years of being in a hotel to speak to the audience assembled there, whether it was a convention or a seminar, a trade show kind of thing like that.
Yep.
And what was nice is that there was a flight on each end of it. So I would say, fly me to the event from wherever I am, and then from it to where I wanted to go. And as I've stepped more into my own work now, what I'm realizing is that because I'm working with people, online on the telephone, via like Zoom or Skype or whatever the video service is that I don't need to be in one place. And now I'm working that into my lifestyle from my own terms instead of from someone else's terms, and saying, hey, I can do this work from Mexico. I can do this and visit friends on the East Coast. I can do this, and maybe it even benefits me to stay at home, but I'm not needing to be in one place. And as I look at that, it's exciting projecting that into the future and seeing, hey, there's a lot of places that I want to live and audiences that I want to serve and things that I want to do. So what can this look like? How free can this be? And having that freedom on my terms instead of, building it around someone else's schedule. And that's kind of the transition I see it going through now.
I love what you just shared, because just the thought process of how can I work this into my lifestyle on my own terms and not on other people's terms is powerful, powerful words for my coming out audience to really hear. This stepping into yourself and being who you are. And I know we talk a lot on this show about, the sexuality piece, but I want to just make sure as you're listening today that you really get the power of what Michael just said. Yes, coming into our own sexual orientation is a powerful space. And yes, you need to find the way to work it into your life and make it on your own terms and not on anybody else's terms. But once you have, quote, mastered that journey, I really encourage anyone that's listening to continue to master that power and bring that power to other aspects of your life, because this is when you begin to really, truly experience true freedom. And as Michael just said, look into the, quote, future looking glass, so to speak, of what this might look like down the road. If I'm doing this here, how can I do it in other areas and aspects of my life? So when you're working with clients, Michael, I'm assuming that a lot of the work that you're doing with your creative types is the same sort of thing. It's helping them start to see into that future mode of what it would be like if they really stood up and just were authentically who they are. Why don't you take us a little bit into that work you do?
Sure. As you were talking about that just now, I think they tie in. Like, I see it as a path that is very emotional. When I think about exactly what I want to be doing, and any client, from an artist to a small business owner, like exactly what they want to be doing, we have examples of people that are doing that now in the world. You know, we can see people that are living exactly the life that we think we want to lead, you know, and just without it being an ego thing, it's like, I'm as smart as they are. I have all the advantages that they have. There's no reason I can't be doing that, except that I've allowed myself to believe maybe that I'm limited in some ways, or that I just have this pattern of not quite playing that way in the world, you know? So like identifying it as, you know, like I can see for myself that there's things that even just playing a little bigger in certain business areas, even though it seems like a process that isn't emotional, that seems like maybe it's more physical or more tactical. A lot of times I see like, yeah, this is myself holding myself back, and then doing the work to move through that. You know, oftentimes I kind of know what to do to have the growth that I want to have. And I understand that it's a process, and none of it is that mysterious, you know, besides working through the emotional aspects of it. So a lot of the work that I do with clients does include some of that, where it's just, hey, what do you really want? And what do you perceive to be stopping you or slowing you down? And then, is this a pattern? Where else is this showing up in your life? And what can we do to move through this in a way that's, you know, kind of as immediate as possible, but as gradual as it needs to be? Because it's more interesting to me to actually release the pattern, to actually have healing around it, instead of just like demonstrating results, you know, kind of like a lottery winner that suddenly has more money and they wanted more money, but they haven't done the work on themselves to actually integrate that, and they go bankrupt right away. You know, it's like the same thing can happen with someone having success right away. So I'm interested in the actual growth. And I think that that's where the happiness and career satisfaction comes in. Like the external results totally will catch up, right, you know, but it's like having that real growth and seeing it as, hey, this is something that is so important to me to achieve because it speaks to who I am. It speaks to, you know, me using my creativity and my skills in the world in a way that people value. You know, stepping into that kind of work just made me feel so much better about my life than having to do work that was transactional, that was feeling like a cog in a machine. But it was even releasing like, oh, I'm not going to be this cog in the machine anymore. That kind of took my breath away a bit, because I had learned so well to survive from that lesser place, you know? So even though there was always the bigger idea going on behind the scenes, like really stepping into that was the work, you know?
It usually is. And, you know, one of the things you just said that I think caught me and got me thinking was, you know, when you describe the lottery winner who suddenly has all the money and they're not prepared for it, it's really similar to the person who comes out of the closet and they're not really prepared for the freedom they get to experience. Because they've been hiding and holding back. And I see this over and over again as I work with individuals, that not all of them, you know, I'm not going to generalize here because I don't like doing that, because that's part of putting somebody back in a closet, so to speak. But a lot of people do find themselves, okay, I've come out and now I've got all this freedom, and they just start going and hooking up and doing the party life and everything because there's an exuberance to that freedom, but they haven't done the work to really prepare for, okay, what is this really going to feel like now that I can be free and I don't have to hide and I don't have to hold back and all these different things. So there is this really beautiful, powerful balance that happens when we do the work. Something you said that kind of struck me as well was this feeling that there's some mysterious thing we have to do to really go do and pursue the things we're doing. It's like, okay, we got to figure out this new thing to make it all happen. I personally am in alignment with what you said, but I'm not sure the audience really got at least the underlying thing that I picked up there, which is so much of what we do in life, there is no mystery. We just go do it. We just take from what we've learned in the past and we step into it and we go do it again. And I'm wondering, you know, what you think about what I just said, and I'll give you like a framework to kind of put it in. Sure. When a client's coming out, one of the things they say is, I don't know how to have these difficult conversations with people about my sexual orientation. I really need to figure out, you know, exactly how I'm going to say this and what I'm going to do. And I usually will sit there virtually nodding my head and listening to them and saying, I understand what you're saying, But then I let them kind of sit with that and say, okay, so let's think about, though, what it is you already know how to do. What do you already know how to do about having difficult conversations? What do you know how to do with your mother, maybe, versus your spouse, or maybe your best friend versus your boss at work? How do you know how to communicate with these people? And oftentimes what I do is I walk them right into that space of, this isn't really all that mysterious, and it isn't really anything all that brand new. The situation is new. But so many of the things that we do in those situations, we just need to lean back on ourselves and the experiences we've had and just go make it happen. So I'm curious to kind of get your perspective on that, because I know sometimes actors, and you work with a lot of creative types, so I know creative types, they're always trying to find that new angle and that new way to be depending on the role. So I know I just gave you a whole handful of stuff to play with.
Oh,
so
yeah, you really did.
Go play.
Okay. So, what I heard you say in terms of having those difficult conversations is that we think of them that way, as difficult conversations. It's like already kind of baked into having the conversations that we have this collective idea that we all agree that these conversations are very difficult, right? And I think that actors go through that a lot too. It's very competitive. It's a supply-sided marketplace would be another way to say it. And there are some truths to these things, right? Like they do exist in this way that isn't necessarily set up to have everybody succeed, right? And then, but when you look at, I think, each of them and realize that, number one, there's a lot of variables that are very much in our control, that we can start asking better questions in terms of like, oh, I have to go into this difficult thing and I'm setting myself up for failure. But just looking at how effortless can this conversation be? How much fun can I have telling my truth to, whatever this select people is in, whether it's coming out or even, I spoke with an actor the other day. His dad was trying to convince him to leave show business at 30. He's a series regular and making hundreds of thousands of dollars and then producing with celebrity names. And so he's like having great success, but he's still, cash flow is inconsistent. His dad's like, when are you going to get out of this? He can't really explain like, hey, I'm killing it over here, Right. It's like we can't control people's perceptions, but just take a better stance at like, what can be fun about this? What can be easy about this? Where can I find support? And to start looking for support and looking for people in your corner, looking for creative opportunities instead of obstacles, and just like choosing to play in that space.
Choosing to play is so important, and I'm glad you brought this up and finding the right support, because it is National Pride Month, and so many cities will be having their Pride celebrations and festivals through the month of June. And what's interesting is most people go, okay, well, how do I really do this? Well, the first thing is you find your support. You get your support, just like your actor client. It's like, go find the support of the people who really want to be behind you in your endeavor, whether it's coming out or staying in acting or going from Cubicle Nation to being an entrepreneur. Go find the people who best serve you and support you in doing that. And you're going to find that some of these things we think that are so difficult suddenly become much easier, if not completely easier, because you've got the right teams around you supporting you and cheering you on.
I think it's so interesting as you keep bringing it back to the conversation of coming out, which I know is why we're here, and I feel like I can serve that. But I also hear when you talk about it that I just have no way of really relating to that particular journey, and I can't imagine the emotional things around that. But it's also that awareness is creating a lot of compassion in me for that, because it's like I get so passionate about that for actors, for artists. With actors, I think it's like people think they need to be everything to everybody. Mm-hmm. That being a good actor means that they can play just a huge range of roles, And then it's like the conversation in that becomes, well, if I don't have the credits, how can I get to the next bigger role? Like if I've never been a series regular, but I have been on TV, how do I get into that series regular space? And I think that credits or credentials in any area are less interesting to me than having a point of view and knowing yourself and being who you are.
I agree 100%.
I think when it comes to that, the artist saying, this is my point of view, I'm willing to be polarizing. I'm willing not to be everything to everyone, but for the people that I'm right for, I'm willing to be totally right for them, and I think it's that kind of thing can get into not only better career opportunities, but then also just a lot more satisfaction with life, because it feels like I'm operating from a place of being authentic. I'm actually living, like I'm lining up my life with my values, my art with my values, like the things that I believe in that make me unique. And I guess what I'm finding, and my way into that is whatever it is that you're doing, the more that you can bring yourself to it. And, the more that I bring myself, like I'll own my language here, the more that I bring myself into my work, the more I hear yes when I'm applying to be in any way aligned with something that I feel like lives in accordance with my own values, right? As I'm looking to grow in my business, I see like this demands that I grow everywhere. It all goes hand in hand, So now since taking that leap of no longer working for other people, I find like, well, I need to kind of wake up earlier. And man, I better exercise more. And my diet has changed because I know I want to bring the best of myself to every area of my life, but it comes from just like kind of insisting on my own truth,
Well, but that's what's so important in all of this. That insisting on your own truth and making sure, as you said, that I'm doing this for me, but I'm also doing it for the right people who I want to be in my life. And that can be a tough one.
It can be a tough one.
It can be tough on so many fronts. It doesn't even have to be around sexual orientation, but it's really tough at times. And I loved your statement when you said, people that I'm right for, be totally right for them. That's a huge statement to being yourself and being your own person, because that's when you really, in my mind, you have a high level of mindfulness and awareness of, okay, this is what I'm doing this for. That doesn't mean we're being jerks and telling everybody else to go screw off. I'm finding the people and my way of being who I'm supposed to be with in the right way, and allowing myself to be fully in that and aligned with my own core values and my own core beliefs.
It's amazing to me just thinking about, like, I haven't had to do that with, sexual orientation. I'm in whatever demographic I'm in, it's completely accepted by society, right? I don't have those obstacles. And it's still like I can feel the struggle of like my own artistic ideas, my own creative ideas. I'm, just feeling the emotional stuff that I go through as in terms of like finding where I fit into the world in a way that helps me to feel, the most self-actualized. Yeah. And all I know in that journey is that the more that I insist on my truth, the more that I allow myself to be more fully who I am, I'm just happier. I'm, like my work is better. I'm more profitable. I have more fun. And I'm attracting people into my life that are helping me to become more of that, and that is, it just feels worthwhile. It feels like this is a great reason to be alive. And just like the way that I want to participate in the world, to experience that for myself, but also to encourage and support others doing the exact same work.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so we teased everybody a little bit with a couple of things that I don't want to get out of this conversation today without discussing them. So I teased everybody with like being a national apartment dweller, and they're probably going, okay, what happened there and why did Rick bring that one up? So why don't you throw that one at them? Let's give them the bone on that one.
Sure. I thought this might be fun for your audience because I was recognized nationally for having the smallest of something, which was my apartment in New York City at the time. I was on Ellen DeGeneres for living in 110 square feet.
Wow.
And that was the fourth floor of a walk-up. So she did this whole bit about like just passing out from exhaustion, getting up there. But it was right in the middle of New York City. I was like, I could get to my roof and look way, way up at the Empire State Building because I was like just 4 blocks from it between Fifth Avenue and Broadway. And, it was an amazing thing to be an artist in New York about 10 years ago and living in that small space that just demanded that I get out into the world and figure out kind of like just all this great self-exploration. Who am I? What do I want to do as an artist? And it was that work as an artist that everyone started saying, hey, you need to be coaching. You need to be helping other people along. That was kind of where the world wanted me. But it came from strangely just being compressed in this tiny little box with no real windows and 8-foot ceilings and strange angles jutting out of the walls that, just eliminated any possibility of furnishing in a realistic way, So I spent 3.5 years in that space. And Ellen came and I got to spoon with Ellen. She brought me an air mattress because the producers didn't see a bed. So we ended up, being a guy, she's like, let's spoon. So I turned to her and she's like, no. And she just points the other way. So then she wrapped herself around me and we ended the segment spooning. It was awesome.
Awesome. That's very cool. So during that time frame, it sounds like you opened up a lot. You started to find and began the journey or were in the deeper journey of finding yourself. So now let's talk a little bit about where this film showed up in your life. What was the whole genesis of that?
Well, what happened, a friend of mine asked me to produce a film. It was my first acting mentor, and he saw it as a legacy piece for him in terms of the way that he teaches, not only the craft of acting, but getting work as well. And we decided that to make this more interesting, we should interview other actors, and the film became titled Stages. So we interviewed different actors at different stages of their careers, starting with people just getting run around by New York City and really asking that, who am I in all this? Like, who am I in my life besides who am I in the industry and who am I to showbiz? Do they even want me here? Really? And then what that looks like a couple of years into it and starting to find that footing, and then what it looks like with people that have had really successful careers or were starting to break through, and finding not only that, like, celebrating the unique differences that they all had that kind of make show business and like really beautiful in that way where it's so welcoming to such a diverse set of people. I mean, I know that Hollywood is under some scrutiny for exactly some of that lately, but there really is, like, when talent comes in, it finds a way into show business at large, I think, pretty consistently, and even if it's over time and if it's not a clean path, So we looked at some of those people, like, at different stages in their process, up to Emmy Award-winning actors. Brad Garrett from Everybody Loves Raymond, who, you remember he's like a giant, Ray's older brother, and he found his way into that role. He tells the story in the film that they were actually looking for kind of a Danny DeVito type because that was more Ray's real life, but he found a way to bring his uniqueness to the truth of that role, which was very much a creative choice, but him standing up for himself. We kind of like look at that whole journey and find what is it that helps people to navigate that maze of being an artist and finding a way into show business. Like, what attitudes make that successful? We have a documentary and it's under an hour, and I think it answers that question in a way that people who are committed to that process love it because they recognize the commitment in there. And people, and there's a lot of people that look at it and say, I'm not really willing to do that work. I want it to be easy. Sell me the magic pill. They don't respond to the film quite the same way.
So you may be wondering why I asked Michael to share that with us, because you're like, okay, well, so what does that have to do with coming out? Well, if you were listening, you kind of could read between the lines here. One of the things that he said is it really empowers you to be the truth in your role. I always love these parallels that we find ways to take something that seems so not related to the coming out journey and bring it into the coming out journey. I think much of what Michael was just talking about with this film, it would help many listeners to be able to see that film and go, okay, how does this relate to my own journey? Whether it's where you fit in and what age you are and bringing your own unique self to the role, as Brad Garrett did. It's all about finding those ways to, wherever you are in this journey, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all, that you find your own way to be your unique self in your life as your gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, polyamorous, whatever it is, self in the life that you've been given. So that's why I wanted to have Michael kind of share about this movie. And I think Michael's going to do something to kind of share that movie with you guys as well. You want to talk a little bit about that, Michael?
Sure. I would just like to offer it to anyone that's listening. So, Rick, what I'll do is I'll send you a link that you can put on the blog post, and it'll just be a passcode. Yep. Whatever, Rick, you tell me.
Yep, that's what we're going to do. So
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, he's going to make that movie available for you guys to have access to. We'll have it on the show notes here on the show. And just want to say, really appreciate that, man. That's really cool. Also, he would love to, if you're one of those people who's a creative type, and this is where us coaches really, most of us coaches, really love to share the wealth. So I'm a coming out coach. I'm a coach who helps people really dive into their uniqueness, not just around sexuality and stuff, but I'm not necessarily the kind of guy that would be good working with someone who may be a creative or a small business owner. So if you're out there and you're listening and what you've heard Michael talking about interests you, I think he's got something else he'd love to also offer you guys that are in that world, which would be a one-on-one consultation with him, correct?
That's right. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I would be thrilled. So the same place in the show notes?
Yep, it'll be in the show notes.
If you go to the website from the show notes, there's a link to get the movie. And on the same page, you can, just fill out a quick application to have that conversation and just make sure it's a fit. And I'd be, thrilled to help you figure out what those next steps are that you can take to have that same satisfaction in your career and your life and really align who you are and what you love to do with how you make money and how you show up and make an impact in the world. That's my work, and it's important to me.
That's awesome. Also, one of the things I know about many people as they come through the closet doors is sometimes it awakens many other things for them, not just their sexual orientation. It can awaken the desire to become more physically fit. It can awaken the desire to say, I'm done being in Cubicle Nation. I'm out of here. Many different things get awakened. So there very possibly could be somebody who's sitting here right now going, I've always wanted to be more creative, or I've wanted to become an artist or an actor or whatever it may be. Well, this may be the perfect opportunity for you to talk with someone that could take you to that space. And so I'm so glad that Michael's offering that up. So, well, Michael, it's a quick 30 minutes when we get in these things, but I want to say thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your beauty, your honesty with everyone who's been listening today. It's been really great having you, man.
My pleasure, Rick. Thank you.
So one of the things that we always do at the end of the show, Michael, is I ask each guest to just, whatever strikes them in this moment, to leave a piece of advice for someone who's listening about coming in, stepping into their own personal truth and being who they are. So it's your floor right now to just kind of deliver that last little tidbit of advice you'd love to leave with the listeners.
Wow. It's overwhelming thinking about just that. I have a lot of appreciation for not having to go through that challenge myself in terms of sexual orientation. I look at my own stuff and I see the journey that I'm going through and I'm like, I have it so much easier and it's still a struggle. Like I make it a struggle, I guess it's just choose to enjoy the journey. Like start asking questions about how you can find the most supportive people. I guess the one tidbit would be to insist on support, to really get very clear on who's supporting you in the world and finding ways to spend more time with them. And it's just my belief as I do that in my own life and I really fill my life with supportive people who are interested in my uniqueness, my creativity, that it makes me happier in every area of my life. And I feel like I'm able to see the entire world, with more compassion and add more value to kind of shape the world to my values more, So I guess that would be the one piece is to really insist on that support in your own life.
I love that. That's a great piece of advice. So if you've enjoyed what Michael and I have been talking about today and you've enjoyed hearing him and the things that he does and the way he's approached this, and if you're sitting there scratching your head going, wait, I don't understand what just happened here. We had like this really cool conversation where we aligned the artistic world and a heterosexual guy's view and a gay guy's view with how their things are so parallel. Well, guess what? Michael and I are probably kind of sitting here doing the same thing because there's a lot that just happened here on this show today. And I'd invite you to really rewind, re-listen to this because I know I'm going to be listening to this one again. And if you love what you've heard, as always, you know the drill. Go give us some love on whatever media you're listening to us. If it's iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, whatever it is. And now you can even find us on Google Play. Just give us a little bit of love. Tell somebody you know that, hey, this might really help you. And what I love about this medium is if you're hiding deep in the closet, you can take this podcast deep into the closet with you, and nobody has to know that you're listening to this sort of stuff. So I guess for this week, we're going to wrap it up. I love doing what I do. Thank you for being our guest. Thank you, Michael, again for being on the show. I'll have all of Michael's information up on the show page where you can access him. And once again, never stop going out there and stepping up, stepping out, and stepping into living your most powerful truth. Have a great week, everyone. We'll talk to you in just 6 more days. Bye-bye. Hey, Closet Dwellers and Coming Out Lounge listeners. I wanted to ask you a question. If you could take stress out of your journey, be more content in who you are, and find ways to do some of the most difficult things that you need to do as you come through the closet doors, would you do it? I bet the answer is yes. Why do I know this? Because I have been getting requests from listeners and clients or prospective clients about finding ways to just address certain things in their coming out journey. Some people don't want to work for a long time, and I totally get that. And that's why I've designed some brand new coming out coaching one-on-one sessions. These are very focused, topic-specific sessions. For example, maybe you're looking at coming out midlife and how do you do it? Could be that you're already out, but you're not completely out and you want to talk about how do I do this and come out at work. Could be that you're having trouble even accepting yourself as a gay person. And might there be a possibility that you're really struggling with your sexuality and your religion? Depending on what you're looking for, I've designed 9 powerful, highly focused one-on-one laser coaching sessions that you can choose from. Each session goes for 90 minutes. We stay specifically focused on the topic at hand. And each of these sessions also includes a copy of my book, Frankly, My Dear, I'm Gay. So now that you've heard about this, how would you like to go check them out? Well, here's how you do this. Go to thecomingoutcoach.com. On that page, you can scroll down. You'll see stuff for the book and for some other offerings, but then you'll see one-on-one coaching sessions. Click on that button, and it will take you to a page that describes each of the 9 offerings that I have. If you happen to be listening to the podcast right now, just look over to the right-hand side of the show page, and you'll see one-on-one coaching sessions right there. Again, just click on that button and go check out these new offerings. So, what do you think? Isn't it about time that you stepped out, you stepped up, and you stepped into resolving whatever the biggest issue is in your coming out journey? I'm Rick Clemens, the Coming Out Coach, and I can't wait to work with you one-on-one.
You've just experienced the Coming Out Lounge. Go online to www.comingoutlounge.com to learn more, and tune in again next week for more stories and tips for being true to yourself.